Hey everyone, David Chen here, and I wanted to talk about Apple's event yesterday during which they unveiled a brand new MacBook Air. Now, I was keenly on the lookout for this new MacBook Air because the original MacBook Air is still one of my favorite laptops of all time. I still remember when Steve Jobs pulled that MacBook Air out of the intra-office envelope in 2008. The PC industry spent years trying to catch up with the lightness, the usability, the trackpad. All the components of that device were so well thought through, it transformed the entire industry. Now, the first generation MacBook Air was not super great. It was pretty low powered and it had some issues, but second generation and onward were fairly capable machines, and I would have no problem recommending those devices to anyone. Now, the MacBook Air is still one of my favorite laptops. I love using this thing, and so I was really hoping that Apple would follow this up with a worthy successor at yesterday's event, and I don't think they did that at all. Now, let me describe a few things about the MacBook Air that make this a really compelling device, in my opinion. First of all, you can buy one for under $1,000, and if you're just looking to get a foothold into the Mac ecosystem, $1,000 feels like a pretty fair price, especially for a device that's this capable, that's this light, it's under 3 pounds, and that is just this fun to use. Let me name a couple other things that I like about this machine. It has an amazing keyboard, and the keyboard is nice to type on, it feels good, it feels like you're actually typing when you use it. And so for that reason, I really enjoy writing on this thing. It has USB-A ports and MagSafe. And I mean, MagSafe is really one of the greatest inventions ever when it comes to laptop usage. You can trip over it and it's not gonna knock your laptop off the desk or the coffee table or wherever it is. I've really enjoyed it for the entire time that I've used MagSafe on Apple laptops. The USB-A ports, some people use USB-C, whatever, you know, all the power to you. 90% of my peripherals are still USB-A. I know eventually I'll have to upgrade, but the USB-C ecosystem just isn't quite there yet, in my opinion. And having 2 USB-A ports is really useful to me, still, at this moment in time in 2018. Finally, it has an SD card slot. And if you're a photographer, and if you're like me, you enjoy taking photos, you can go out into the world with this laptop. It is amazingly useful to have the SD card slot built in. Now, it's not all great on the MacBook Air. One of the biggest problems is the screen is absolute garbage. And I don't just mean in terms of resolution, I mean the panel, it doesn't look very good. And so a lot of people, like me, were hoping that when Apple updated the MacBook Air, they would just update the screen and nothing else. And it was an impossible dream that Apple would do this yesterday, and of course, it was too impossible to come true. Because what Apple revealed is just another version of their MacBook Pro, basically. It's the Retina screen, 2 USB-C ports, the Touch ID sensor, that's pretty cool, but no other characteristics that I just named are true of the new MacBook Air. It's now $1,200 to start with. There is no SD card slot, there is no MagSafe, but worst of all, it uses that terrible keyboard that is so thin, that has no travel, doesn't feel good to type on. And even if you like it, consider the fact that many people don't. Prior to 3 to 4 years ago, how many people talked about laptop keyboards? Very rarely. The laptop keyboard is something you don't want to think about. You just want to use it. It should be completely unremarkable. Apple chose a path where they would have a keyboard that prized thinness above all else, and as a result, a lot of people don't like it. And not to mention, of course, it also broke very often in its first couple of generations. So whether or not the 3rd generation of this butterfly keyboard is going to be reliable remains to be seen. The first versions of it just came out a few months ago, but I don't exactly trust it, and even if it's reliable, I don't enjoy using it. So I'm really disappointed in the new MacBook Air. It's highly likely that we will not see a good keyboard, an unremarkable, uncontroversial keyboard on an Apple laptop for the foreseeable future, and it could be years before they introduce a different design. I know it was very unrealistic to expect that yesterday's event would have simply the MacBook Air with updated screen. it would have been a repudiation of all Apple design decisions up until this point. But I was still hoping that that would happen because I would have bought one immediately. As a result, I don't know if I'm ever gonna buy one again. I don't know if I'm gonna buy an Apple laptop again. I'm probably just gonna keep replacing the battery on this one or my MacBook Pro until they no longer offer those batteries, because I just can't stand that keyboard, and I like having an SD card slot when I am out in the world with my laptop. I love the old MacBook Air, and Apple is actually still selling it on their website, which is kind of a weird decision. I think they know that even the old one at under $1,000 is still gonna sell pretty well, because as I've indicated, it's still a very appealing device. But who knows how long that'll last. So I'm really sad to see that Apple's basically moving on in a completely new direction than the MacBook Air, but still loving my old MacBook Air, still gonna get as much use out of it as possible. Anyway, I know this has come off as very ranty, but think of it as more of an admiration for all of the design decisions that Apple made until this point with their old MacBook Air, which again, I'm a big fan of. RIP MacBook Air, you are missed. Long live, I guess, the new MacBook Air. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit like or subscribe if you did, and follow me on Twitter at DaveChensky or at davechen.net/letters to get emails from me, and I'll see you in the next one.